What's up, Disrupt Nation? My name is Tony Delgado, and welcome to Latino Capitalist, where we decode money, politics, business, and capitalism. And today, I'm here with my good guest, Ian Smith. Ian, thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Thanks for having me. What's up, brother? How are you?
Good
to see you. Finally, it's been about 4 years or so since we chatted. So
yeah. Last time we chatted was on the internet because of COVID.
Yeah, so. when nobody was allowed to do anything or go anywhere, and
yeah, we had to be social distancing. So that was kind of like your rise to fame. Before we dive into business and politics, and I know you have a new book that's out, I want to talk about kind of like your rise to fame during that era, right? That was a very weird era, March of 2020, where 2 weeks turned into 2 years, turned into kind of the new normal, right? Take me back to, I guess, that first 2 weeks and how it impacted your business and what your mindset was going into the pandemic. Because I think a lot of people reacted a certain way, and they maybe did so from the goodness of their own hearts, right? They probably thought, hey, I'm going to do the right thing.
Sure.
And I'm going to stay home and wear 5 masks, and I'm going to do whatever the government tells me to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That was the okie doke. That was the gotcha, you know.
And so during those first 2 weeks, when was it apparent to you? Because I think now it's apparent to a lot more people that maybe that wasn't the full story. But when was it apparent to you that maybe everything wasn't as it seemed?
Well, you know, so to give people who aren't familiar with the story a little bit of background, I lived in New Jersey, been a Philly Jersey cat pretty much most of my life. I went to college out at ASU, but other than that, I've lived in the Northeast, you know, most of my life until recently. Young entrepreneur. I had a rocky start to my 20s. I did 5 years in prison and kind of came out at 25 and watched everybody that I knew be leaps and bounds ahead of me. So I really kind of got to work pretty quick. It was good motivation, if nothing else. So I started out as a personal trainer. I got into fitness when I was in prison. Nothing better to do, and you know, I wasn't really into it beforehand. I didn't really understand the value in it, and I got into it, and it was really a saving grace for me during that period. It was something I could really anchor to and tether to, and it was something that fundamentally changed who I was, physically first and then mentally. And I fell in love with fitness. And just health in general. And
this was while you were inside? You fell in love with fitness?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a project that nobody could take from me. Yeah. You know, for anybody who's been locked up, they understand, or for those who don't, everything's taken from you, you know, usually for reasons that you deserve. You know, they take your name, they take your ability to dress, your ability to communicate with people, whatever.
Yeah, your cell phone and every single one of your worldly possessions. I think until someone's been in that position, they don't realize that you are stripped of every single worldly possession.
Loss of freedom, you know, in freedom of every sort of thing that we sort of take for granted, just being normal people. So when I got out, I had a fire under my ass, so to speak, and I had something I was passionate about, and you know, never really wanted to work for anybody. I had, you know, obviously worked before I went away, and I had a couple jobs when I got out, and you know, in the fitness world, and there was just this feeling inside of me that was like, hey, this isn't for me. Yeah. So I went out on my own, started at probably about 28. I started doing independent personal training after working in every gym in the country, you know, in terms of every position, from Globo Gym USA to, you know, a locally owned spot and everything in between. Everything from cleaning the bathrooms and selling memberships to managing and personal training, but I always loved the training aspect of it. So went out there, put my name out, and hustled really hard, and I was pretty successful very quickly. I did have a pre-existing network of people in my home area, so I went from a guy training out of the trunk of my 2005 Volkswagen Jetta with, like, you know, a couple polyurethane dumbbells I bought at TJ Maxx on a credit card, you know, as a fresh on the streets ex-felon. Built that very quickly to where I needed my own studio. You know, I kind of maxed out my capacity traveling around to people and got myself a studio. Nice little humble spot. I built it. Over the next couple of years, I became...
And what year was that when you got the studio?
probably 2018, 2017, somewhere between the two. And again, I started really humble with it. I was very thankful. I humbled myself. I had to move back in with my parents at that age, something I really didn't want to do, but I saw the value in being able to stack my money, and turned the Jetta with some dumbbells in the back of the car to a full-blown studio, and eventually became one of the busiest trainers in the area, one of the most sought after. And I hit a ceiling again. I got to the point where I was working 100 hours a week, and I wasn't getting any more successful. Yes, I was making more money, but there was a ceiling, and I was stuck in second gear. I was the entire business. If I didn't work, I didn't get paid, and I needed something else. And the opportunity to buy a failing gym came along. And a friend of mine at the time, who he had a nutrition store, and I had the back half of his space for my studio. We had businesses that sort of coincided and ran parallel to each other. We decided to buy a gym. It was sort of like a Hail Mary. I didn't have the money to even put into it. I had to go. I had some of it, but I had to go ask friends. And I thankfully I've been blessed with some really good people in my life. Got a little bit from family, a little bit from some really good friends, and they believed in, my abilities to produce something. So we bought this failing gym in a quiet suburb of New Jersey, and this place was a dumpster fire when we bought it. It was a great gym. It had great potential, but it was just it was not being run. Really, nobody was there to run it. You had an absentee owner, and gyms don't work like that, especially if you don't have systems in place. So it was just kind of behind on everything, and we came in and we hit the ground running, and we just ran the same play. Hard work, quality service, caring about the people that support our small business, and caring about the community, giving back to the community, and we hockey sticked right away. Turned this place around, and 9 months into owning it, they said, shut your business down. So that's kind of, where the story begins. So when all of that started, it was, as an entrepreneur and a business owner, it was scary no matter where you're at. But for somebody who had just put everything on the line, I dumped my life savings plus
other people's life savings, right?
Plus borrowed money into it,
and for sure.
And we were already doing really well, and it's like, dude, this is a big ask. You want us to shut down our business? And I had sort of been paying attention kind of politically before, but I think at that time I was truly just enjoying the sort of feel-good nationalism under Trump, the fact that everybody had money to spend. It was a very good time to be in any business pretty much, because we had an economy where people were spending money and money was flowing and whatever. So
but probably like most people, you were probably apolitical. Right, it's like,
yeah,
hey, politics.
I was
that's
probably leaning a little bit
there.
more towards Trump at the time. I didn't vote in that previous election, but I kind of thought it was cool that this quote unquote outsider had gotten in.
Yeah.
And other than that, I was just minding my business.
I think the average American is like that. I think the average American is not super into politics, right? They want to
more now, but I think generally speaking,
especially before 2020. Yeah.
Yes, especially before 2020. So, I wasn't blind to politics, but I wasn't sort of invested in it either. So when this came along, it just didn't really sit right. It was, I'm not naive enough to not at least understand some history, and whether you're talking about the United States government or any government around the world, usually when they take stuff away, they're very slow to give it back, if ever. That's a trend. You can look at any culture or any country throughout history, and when they take stuff away or they give themselves new powers, it's usually,
Yeah, we still have the TSA.
Yeah, exactly.
At every single airport, right?
Yeah, but because of a guy with a bomb in his shoe who was mentally pretty much incapacitated. So it didn't sit right, but the hysteria and sort of the panic had gotten so high that, we decided, hey, we don't want to do this, but we don't know enough to confidently say no. Again, what you said in the beginning, they played into people's sort of desire to just do the right thing and be a good person. So it's like, okay, I don't understand this thing that you're talking about. You know, the story was pretty weird in the beginning. We were talking about bat soup and, you know, all these kind of, and it was like, it didn't make sense, but it wasn't enough to where we were confident in it. So we did shut down. And the first day we still had a ton of stuff to do. So as owners, we were still going. You know, we had stuff to fix and, you know, plenty of projects. And the first day I remember driving down the highway, I-95 in Jersey. And I mean, it's an 8-lane highway in some spots. And I was like the only car on the road. And it just felt really wrong, like on a, like deep in your gut kind of level. Like this just doesn't feel okay. I don't understand it, but I don't like it. And you couldn't avoid at least thinking about it. Especially in a position of a business owner, like it wasn't as if you were getting paid to sit home. You know, like some people were, and that was sort of the trick where they got people to not pay attention, is they said, "Oh, don't worry, we'll pay you." You know, so you know, day one it didn't sit well, and I remember driving down the highway, and there's a spot on the highway where you can see like a huge mall, and I remember driving by, and it was like there wasn't a parking spot in there that was empty, and I drove by like a Walmart, and it was like all these people, and then I pull into like my little strip mall in Belmar, New Jersey, and it's vacant. It's like a ghost town, and it's just like, you know, I look at, there's a Walmart open, and there's all these big corporations that are open, and I pull into this little place.
And they're full. They're packed.
They're packed.
Walmart's packed.
They're even over capacity at that point. You know what I mean? Because nobody had anything else to do, so everybody was at Home Depot doing home projects. And I pulled into my little strip mall, and there's a nail salon, and there's a ballroom dance studio, and a chiropractor, or some sort of like a beauty salon, a couple other places. Yeah, and it's locally like, and then there's the gym, and I'm like, I know all these people, and I know that they don't want to be doing this either, and I know that it's not fair that we're here doing what you guys could do. I mean, because all they were doing was taking temperatures and putting little stickers on the ground to tell you which way to walk. Like it wasn't as if they had people in hazmat suits and it was like one person in the store at a time. Like they were just making people stand in line outside 6 feet apart. And you know, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed by any stretch of the imagination, but I got a little bit of common sense, and it just didn't sit right. Maybe because it was happening to me, you know, it made me think about it more. But my partner and I got to talking, and within a couple days, we had decided that we were going to reopen. As we got closer and closer to that 2-week mark, it became very clear that they weren't going to let us open, because we were at like day 11, and then they pass a $2.3 or $2.4 trillion economic stimulus plan, and it's like you look in it, and then they're paying people for 16 weeks, and there's all these questions and red flags, and it was just too much for us to kind of stomach, because it was like, nah, this just doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. You guys haven't mentioned anything about opening. So we decided right then and there that we were going to reopen, but we weren't going to do it without being ready for whatever came on the other side. We didn't know what it was, but we were sure we were going to get criticized. I mean, that it was, as time went on, more and more people kind of joined our side. But at that point, like, you were a grandma killer. You were like a heartless, soulless, you know, like killing grandmas, just like stacking the bodies, you know, just by not obeying, like, you know, mask mandates or whatever. So we knew that there would be some sort of pushback. Didn't know what it was from the government. We knew that we would probably get some hatred for it. So we spent 6 weeks preparing, and we just dove into everything that we could. We read about COVID and mitigation and alternative therapies and just all sorts of stuff, as well as, you know, ways we could clean. And we set out this huge program. We looked at what everybody else was doing. We looked at what the government was doing to stay open. We looked at hospitals. We looked at all these other places and all their mitigation practices, and we took them all, and then we added a bunch more, to the point that if we opened and they said, no, you can't open, we had, like, it wasn't just like we said, like, screw you, you know, threw up a middle finger and said we're opening. It was like, no, like, we've thought about this. And we even presented it to the state, and we presented it to the media before we opened. You know, I went on social media and I did like a 9-minute sort of speech. I wrote it probably 50 times, wrote it and rewrote it, and then I finally just threw it out. after like 40 takes of me like shaking and stumbling through words, looking at my cell phone in my office. And I remember I just kind of pressed the send button on it, and it was who we were, what we were going to do, why we thought it was important, how we were going to keep people, quote unquote, safe, and an encouragement for any other small business or church or school or anybody who was, quote unquote, not essential to, hey, here's our plan. If you want to do this too, like, take a look. We've thought about this. You know what I mean? Here's everything. And I remember sending that video, and that was like the beginning of the rise to fame. It was, I had like a small fitness, Instagram at the time, maybe a couple thousand followers, from coaching and training and owning the gym. And it was very, very localized for the most part. And I remember like hitting the send button and just being like, oh, shit, like here we go, I guess. And then like watching it like really just kind of pick up momentum very quickly, and watching the comments, and they're either here or here. There was nobody like in the middle. It was either like, we support you, like I'll drive from Ohio, like crazy. And then the other side was like, how dare you? You just selfish, piece of shit. They were nasty on the other side. It was like, how dare we do this? And, so it was like, all right, a little bit of criticism. Most people aren't prepared for that normally, I think. And I certainly wasn't. Is like, nobody wants to be criticized. I think that's sort of in our nature.
I think social media in general is a lot more toxic than the real world, because in the real world, people are going to say that to your face because they can get punched in the face, right? They're not going to go and say, hey, you're a terrible person or whatever.
In all of the hatred I've gotten in 4 years, and I still get plenty, there's only been one person who's ever said anything to me in public. One person. Crazy. And he was pretty hammered. So, I watched this video sort of go, quote unquote, viral for who I was at the time. And the next day we got a call from like a local radio host, and he just wanted to talk about it. And we went on the show, and we wound up talking for like 20 minutes. And then my phone rang, I think the next day, because we announced that we were going to open in a week, so we had like some time left. My phone rang the next day, and we were still technically open. I was still training people and whatever. It was the come in the side door thing. I was training a client. My phone rang, and it's, hey, is this Ian Smith? Yeah. How can I help you? Do you own such and such gym in South Jersey or in New Jersey? I said, yeah. And they're like, are you going to open your gym on Monday? And I said, yeah. I said, who's this? Because we were getting inundated with calls. People got my number online. I was getting as much hate as I was, people saying like, hey, there were some awesome people all the way through the journey, but right away there were people who wanted to help. People who owned other small businesses who had cleaning product to donate, whatever. So I was answering every call. It was a 50-50 chance whether it was die or, how can I help you? And they said, this is, the guy's name was Alex. This is Alex from the Tucker Carlson show. He's like, do you want to come on and talk about it? And I was like, yeah, you do. I guess, like, holy crap, because that was one of the shows I did watch at the time, because even though I wasn't super involved politically, I always kind of enjoyed the reality of the way he put things. I was like, cool, when? And they're like, tonight. And it was like 4:00, and I was like, okay, I got to go. So I got ready and went over to a studio in Philadelphia and sat there in front of a camera in a room with a Philadelphia backdrop on it, and they mic'd me up and powdered my face, and that was it, man. It was 3, 2, 1 showtime. And I don't even really remember much of the first show because I was so nervous. I had like, the audio in my ear, and I'm looking at like myself on the screen, and I can't like stay. I'm just a nervous wreck because I'm like, holy crap! Like, this is a Tucker Carlson show. Like, the radio show was one thing. Like, that was
my couple hundred people in a local
my palms
town.
were a little sweaty for that one. You know what I mean? And the video, putting it out there was, again, it was intimidating. But this was like just being thrown into the very deep end. And I remember as like the monologue started to queue up, like my heart started to beat so hard that you could actually see my shirt moving. Like, I was looking down, you could see like the flutter of my shirt, and I'm like, holy crap, man. And then he starts talking about the gym, and my heart starts beating so hard I can hear it and feel it in my ears, to the point where like I can barely hear audio. Like it feels like I'm gonna black out. Seriously, like it's just doom, doom, doom. And then off we went, and we had the discussion, and apparently I at least expressed myself in a somewhat intelligent manner. And I remember one thing. He said, "You are on the most watched cable news show in all of history in front of millions of people." He said, "And you are about to openly defy your governor's orders to close your business. Are you prepared to do that?" And like without hesitation, he was like, yeah, we are. Because we were so confident. We had spent the time. We had done the research. We knew that we were not wrong on this. There were too many red flags. Although we didn't understand it, you know, on the whole, we knew that we were doing the right thing. And I think that was the most important thing, is that we were 100% sure that this was the right move. Not only for ourselves and for our families and for self-preservation, but for the greater good, that we were being lied to. We didn't know all about it, but we knew that there was a lot of missing information and that people were hurting because of it. I was watching businesses close every day. Multi-generational small businesses. I mean, you're a business owner. Anybody who's a business owner understands most businesses don't have the capacity to take time off. I mean, you can have a couple bad months and be out of business. You know, small businesses don't have these big bankrolls in the back where they can sit on cash. You know, most small businesses, you're paying, by the time you pay all the bills and give everybody a salary, you're lucky if there's some left. You know, that's the reality of small business. So we were just confident. And, you know, I remember my phone, as soon as the interview ended, my phone was like, it was making noises I've never heard before, because there were so many notifications going off. And, you know, I called my mom and she was crying and all this. And by the time I had logged onto social media, there was 40,000 more people following me than 10 minutes, 15 minutes beforehand. And that's when I was like, oh, it's on. Like, it's, because now it's like, now I knew that no matter what the criticism was, that there were people who really believed in what we were doing. And that was the beginning of the meteoric rise to, I think it's more notoriety, because there was, you know, fame, I feel like is more good. And there was a lot of people who knew who we were, and it was because they hated us. Yeah. So, and then it was just straight up from there.
Well, I think more importantly than just the decision to open the gym, right? Because like you mentioned earlier, there was a lot of people doing stuff through the back door, right? Yeah. Hey, you know, come through the back door and you can come get your hair cut. Come through the back door and you can come get your nails done or whatever. But the fact that you openly and publicly were a light to all these other businesses and kind of gave them a blueprint and permission and a green light, and the fact that you chose to do it out in the public, I think, was the more heroic thing, right? Because you could have kept doing stuff in the back door and, hey, we'll stay open and we'll try to
charge extra for memberships for the risk. There were a lot of people doing that, and I don't think anybody's a bad person for doing anything like that. I think it was the wrong move, you know, and that's why, because again, we looked at it. There was layers to it, you know. We didn't just open for one reason. We opened out of self-preservation, but we also opened because, you know, we have the gym that we had is not, you know, and it doesn't matter what kind of gym it is, you know, but we had a gym especially full of people who go there because they need to be there. You know, people who derive great value on a lot of levels, and a lot of that has very little to do with physical health and a lot to do with mental health. You know, we had a gym full of recovering addicts. We had a gym full of veterans. You know, we always tell the story, and there's always one person who really stuck out, and it was just, you know, he was one of many, but he always stuck out. And there was a guy who came to our gym every day. He was there every day. He was a Marine Corps veteran, multiple tours, 2 Purple Hearts, all sorts of, you know, just hero shit, real hero shit. And his reason for coming to the gym, you know, one of the criticisms that we always got was like, oh, you guys just want to make your muscles big. And it's like, dude, nobody goes to the gym just for that. That may be one of many reasons, but people go to the gym to feel good and to be healthy and to live a good life. It's the cornerstone of everything else. If you don't have domain over your physical realm and your physical capacities, what are you going to build, you know? And that it doesn't mean you have to be the perfect image of health either. But this guy came to the gym because the things that he's had to see and do haunt him. And he'd go back and do it in a heartbeat because he loves his country and he loves his family, and he's everything that an American should be. But he comes to the gym to destroy those demons every day. And if he doesn't, it's alcohol or it's medication in the form of prescription pills from the VA. And we knew that, and he would come into our gym every morning, 7 a.m., comes in, awesome guy, absolute killer, but just an awesome guy, a father, a husband. And when he left every day, an hour and a half later, a whole shade darker because he sweat through everything he's had and just did what he needed to do, every day. When he went home, he was able to be a father. He was able to be a husband. Without those things, he wasn't, and this is somebody who's battled with serious mental health issues that weren't his own. They were put on him. He went to go do something for other people and came back home with that. So the gym was full of people like that, and all gyms are. So there was a lot of reasons why, it was layered. But that was it. It was just too big not to do it all the way. If you're gonna stand for something, stand for it. Stand tall, stand with your chest up. I think there's a quote somewhere, I'll probably butcher it, but it's like, speak your truth even if your voice trembles or something to that effect. And it was like, be scared, be all those things, but still do the right thing regardless of what'll happen. And that was kind of a way for us to deal with the stress of it all, because there was a tremendous amount of stress, but I think we understood that very early, and maybe we were just a little early to the party on that one, because I think a lot of people did understand that as time went on.
Yeah. Well, and so there were a lot of consequences, right? So now let's dive into that, because the government was not happy about you kind of giving them the middle finger on national television.
No, they certainly weren't. So, man, we could do a whole episode on that. But
I thought it was going to be the government that called you. Hey, are you opening your gym on Monday? Because we're going to be there to stop you.
Well, like every phone call was like that. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, man, who's on the other end of this?
And you probably weren't ready for that either. You probably had your cell phone number on the website and everything.
No, I wasn't ready for 1,000 calls. I had like a little Vagaro booking website, where I put my phone number in, not even thinking that it was public information. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, 100,000 people who hate you have it. Governor Murphy saw the Tucker Carlson episode, because they've thrown jabs at each other back and forth, in the political arena. And he called the township of Belmar and told the police not to let us in the building that following Monday. So we had a lot of allies through this who were working in government. We had people who were sympathetic. Maybe they couldn't speak out in the way that we could, because they have their job on the line or whatever. And I certainly understand that predicament. But they were very sympathetic to us. So a couple people were like, hey, psst, like the Belmar PD are going to be there at 5 a.m. on Monday, whatever it was. So we decided, fuck it. We'll go in on Sunday and we'll camp in there. They won't be ready for us. And we went in there with friends, families, some volunteers from the gym. And we covered up all the windows with brown paper. And we took these like shipping chains and we chained the doors up. And we literally like locked ourselves in from the inside. And just kind of were like, all right, well, nobody like slept that night. We were just sitting there sort of looking at each other and wondering what was going to be on the other side of the door in the morning. And, man, 4 o'clock rolled around and you could start to hear noise and commotion. And we were peeking through the brown paper, pulling it back a little bit. And it was like, you looked out and it was like the cavalry arrived, like our cavalry, not the PD. Like it was, you looked out and there was just people like American flags waving and like Gadsden flags waving and, back the blue flags and the Sons of Liberty and the Betsy Ross flag. And there were Trump flags out there, because I think the Trump crowd was definitely much more of an early adopters to, hey, we don't like this. And then there was like every major news, company in the country. I mean, everybody was out there. And it wasn't like the local channels. It was like Fox, not Fox 29 Philadelphia. It was like, MSNBC was out there. Everybody was out there. Hell, we even had Telemundo was out there. For real. Because I was like, oh crap, we got everybody here. Or Univision, whoever's up there. That was like another one of these like, oh shit moments. Like, man, like we're it just confidence built throughout this. Although like the tensions and the fear and the stakes were rising, all the way through this, we were just gaining momentum. From the second we decided to do it, we were gaining momentum, just in every single way possible. And got a call at like 7 a.m. that morning, and another reporter, and it's Pete Hegseth from Fox News, and he's like, "Hey, I'm the national correspondent for Fox and Friends in the morning. You know, I'm outside on your doorstep. Can I get an interview?" I'm like, yeah, dude. I mean, I gotta walk out there anyway. I'm not gonna say no. So, you know, we open the doors, and there's a national interview out there, and there's a crowd of hundreds of people. Like the parking lot was full of cars. And it's not a small, it's a good sized strip mall. Like it was full.
And the police didn't show up?
And the police were there. Yeah.
Oh, they were there as well.
The police were there. They were out in like full force.
That must have given you much more confidence, because now it'd be a lot more scary if the police are there and nobody else is there to see what they do.
Absolutely.
Right? But you have all the cameras, and it's like
absolutely. Well, in that moment, as soon as the Tucker episode was really a huge can of gas on the fire. Like I'll forever have just a big place in my heart for Tucker, because he took us on when it wasn't even popular to interview us. And he gave us the ability to speak without an unbiased interview. You know, so he took a chance on us too. But that was the tanker of gas that just lit the blaze. But yeah, I recognize in those moments, I'm like, we're going to be okay. We're going to go through it. Like we're in for a turbulent flight, but we're going to land this thing. We're going to be all right. And, you know, I thought to myself, if I can show the entire world how crazy these people will get, and to the extremes that they will go to in the face of logic, in the face of everything that's obvious, how far they'll go to make me obey them, it's all going to be worth it. And
yeah, you'll prove that it's about obeying them and it's not about anything else.
Yeah,
right?
You're gonna smack me around, but I'm gonna stand on my feet. And every time you hit me, people are gonna question how much of a psycho you are. You know what I mean? Like, because you're just gonna keep escalating, and I'm just gonna open my gym. I'm just gonna open my gym every day. That's the game plan. That's it. You know.
So you opened day one. And what
opened day one. Police are in the parking lot, and you know, they were just kind of there for a while. And we had a whole system, and only a certain amount of people in the gym at a time. And we were doing temperatures at the door. We were doing everything. Even at that point, the first week, we actually required masks, which was something that we wound up dropping. But even
so, like everything that Walmart's doing.
Yeah. And we did it not because we believed in it. We did it because we were like, hey, we're not trying to be assholes here. We're just trying to earn a living. We're just trying to, I just want the same chance that Walmart has to make money this year. That's all. I don't want special treatment.
And if it's safe to go to Walmart, then it's safe to come here. Yeah.
Yeah. And if that mask works at Walmart, it'll work in my gym, you know? Turns out it doesn't work anywhere, but so, about noon that day, the crowd's like roaring outside, and they're yelling for us. So, you know, I hear my name and come out, and the police are sort of closed in a little bit, and the crowd's sort of getting a little rambunctious. And at that point, it became clear that people were listening to me. When I spoke, people got quiet, because they were like, we're looking at you. You know, we're here for whatever you guys. So, you know, I just started to speak, and I said, hey, like, let these guys talk. It is what it is. And the captain at the time came up, and there's actually a video of it still on my Instagram. Comes up, and the crowd's all, you know, pissed off, and we quiet him down. And, you know, he says, I am here to let you guys know that you are in violation of a governor's orders. And everybody's like, boo, like yelling at him. And it's, no, quiet. And he does this like dramatic, you know, finger raise. And he's like, on that note, everybody be safe. Have a nice day. And we were like, we won. Like, it's like, it's over. Like, it was this huge cheer. And then like 30 minutes later, we found out that I guess he had been relieved, or he retired. I'm not really sure what happened. He was an older guy. You know, he was probably done with the BS anyway. Yeah. And bootlicking second sergeant came up, and second lieutenant came up, and he was ready to hand out tickets. And he started handing out tickets. And that was the first.
To individuals?
To me and my former partner.
Or just to the business?
Yeah. So we took them. The cameras were there. We were like, smiled with them, you know, see you guys, gym's still open. You know, like we're not closing down. Day one went like that. Day two, they came back. Same thing, more people, new people. Every day we were gaining momentum.
What are they writing you tickets for?
Violation of a governor's orders, public nuisance, disturbing the peace, anything they could. We wound up in total getting like 90-some municipal citations or something to that effect, you know, half and half between us.
So it's the definition of lawfare. It's using the law. No one complained and said that you were being a public nuisance, right?
No. Yeah. I mean, probably yes, but without call. They were probably calling from California. You know what I mean? Like, and we weren't. We were being we were peaceful. The demonstration was peaceful. Nobody was getting hurt. We were above and beyond what everybody else was doing. So we just said, like, hey, this is part of what's going to happen to us. So just stick it on the desk and go back to work.
So every day you open the gym, and every day they come and write you tickets.
For the first week, it happens like that. A couple other things. They started messing with our customers. So they actually arrested a guy on Wednesday. They put cameras up in the parking lot. We got them taken down because it's private property. We just called and said, like, hey, you're going to get sued if you don't take this down. And this guy comes down. And then they were following people home and pulling them over and giving us more citations. And then on Thursday, we got there and there was like a health department closure on the door. Somebody had messed with our plumbing from the outside. We have pictures of the Borough of Belmar trucks, you know, outside. And all of a sudden our toilets didn't work. So the game began. But our strategy was forward. Every day, the gym opens. No matter what they do to us, unless we're in jail or we're dead, the gym's open. That was our agreement as, hey, we're going to take this on as a team. You're not going to be a punk. You know, I'm not going to be a punk. Everybody, we're going through. We're not going to dip our toes in the water. We're diving in the deep end, and we're fighting. So it was just, hey, put the tickets on the counter. Boom, put the tickets on the counter. Gym's open. Gym's open. You know, and we would even say, cops, you want to come in and work out? You know, they weren't allowed. Hey, you want to work out? You can come out after hours. You know, like no. And at that point, especially, there was no hostility towards the police. My views on that sort of changed. You know, I think that these guys listened to orders to the point of absurdity. But especially at that point, I was like, you know, I'm not mad at you guys because a lot of these guys were members. They were members of the gym. You know, they didn't want to be there either. So we understood that. On Friday, they came and locked our doors. They locked our doors after hours. They came with the sheriff's department, locked the doors. At that point, we said, okay, let's put it in the courts. You know, we made our point. Checks and balances, right? That's somewhere in the idea of government is that, you know, we have three branches, executive, legislative, and judicial, and if one of them's out of hand, the other will sort of correct it. Filed the lawsuit. The judge didn't even want to look at it, kicked it out of federal court, back into the state courts, in a state court against the state, in a state that appoints judges and doesn't elect them, so they're positions given to them by politicians, particularly the governor. So we said, screw that. We're not going to play that game. We're opening back up. So we went and we picked the locks to our gym and took out all our equipment, and we were outside for a month. They were writing us tickets every day. We were outside in the middle of June on the hot-ass blacktop using pallet jacks to pull all of our machinery outside every day and then put it back in, pulling out entire rack of dumbbells, probably 50,000 pounds worth of plates and dumbbells and weights every day.
And then people are working out outside.
People are working out outside. And that was at the time when, I think it was in like Seattle or Portland, there's like Antifa BLM riots, and they formed that like autonomous zone. It was like Chaz or something. I think it was like the Capitol Hill autonomous zone where they like took over a city block. So we just put cones in the parking lot and we called it AMAZ. You know, we had to have some fun with it. It was the anti-Murphy autonomous zone. But it was just keep going. Like whatever happens, keep going, keep going, keep going. And then they hit us with a court order, and that's when a lot of the big punishment started. They took the health department shut down, they took all of these tickets, and they took the executive order, and they said, Judge, you know, grant us a court order to close these people down. Now it's coming from the judicial branch. Now there's tangible punishments to it. And of course, the judge said yes, because he's a lackey of the state, you know, and that year he was actually up for tenure, so you know he's going to be a good boy and listen, and he did. And he gave Murphy whatever he wanted, and then they started fining us $15,497.76 per day for every day that we were open. And that's when it got like, oh, this is real, and this isn't going to end soon. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't foresee it going longer than a couple weeks. And now we're in month 2, 3, 4, 5, rounding the bases to a half a year.
And at this point, 3 or 4 months into it, were other gyms allowed to open? Planet Fitness, all these guys?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't until almost a year that gyms opened in Jersey, and they opened with all sorts of restrictions, like personal training studios were allowed to open, but not gyms, and you could only train one person at a time unless they were family members or lovers. And we were just having fun with it. So we refiled as like a personal training studio, and we made everybody sign a paper that said that they were romantically involved with other people in the gym. We had a stack of like 500. We had to have fun with it because it was scary. It was scary and it was stressful. So
and it was absurd. It was ridiculous.
And it was easy to make fun of. Yeah. You know what I mean? And we handed those into court. And there's court documents that the prosecutor is pissed that were like clowning the court. Like he was upset that, and it's like, hey, you wrote the rule, man. Like, what do you want? You want to talk about dumb rules? We'll follow dumb rules. Everybody here's fucking each other. You know what I mean? It's like, so it just kept going, and that 15,000, it's like, ooh, like, all right.
Yeah, that's real money.
Mind you, we haven't charged anybody. We didn't reopen and start charging. We reopened and it was free. It was, you want to donate to our cause? Go to our GoFundMe. Buy a T-shirt, but we're not charging for gym memberships because we're abiding by at least that portion of the executive order. And it wasn't about the money. As much as we could have used it, it wasn't about the money. So we haven't charged people in 6 months or so, and now you're fining us $15,000 per day. And the first one's kind of like, what else you got? And then like that second one hits, and then it hits 6 figures, and then you're like, it hit 7 figures. And I've never seen it. I've never been close to $1 million in my life. I'm a broke young entrepreneur who just put his life savings into this place. There's no money in there. There's no money coming in. And
selling T-shirts.
Yeah, and that's just going to legal bills immediately anyway.
Yeah,
whole thing, we wound up spending $750,000 in legal bills. I mean, it was, the whole state was after us. So we were fighting 5 different court battles at once. So that's where it started to get just really, really real. And that kind of got into the point where it just became a battle every day, and that was our life. It was going to the gym. I wound up speaking a lot because there were auxiliary causes and other people opening, and people were waking up to COVID at that time. So that was a way that we could kind of stay in people's minds, because even if you see something that's messed up, I mean, everybody's got to live their life. So your attention to what's happening to the guy in New Jersey only lasts for so long. But it was our ability to keep staying in the news, keep talking, keep being in front of people, keep the sort of train moving forward. And we were eventually arrested. They came back to lock our doors again. And there was a gym owner in California. He was actually the first gym owner in the country to open up. His name's Lou Uridell. He owns Metroflex Gym in Oceanside. He got arrested. He was like this jacked white dude with long dreads. He's getting pulled out like day 3, and I remember seeing him on the news, and we had connected, and there was a lot of businesses that were opening and fighting. We were far from the only one. We may have been the biggest, in terms of attention, but we connected, and we would just kind of like vent to each other because it was different. What California was doing was different than what Jersey was doing. And Michigan was using the health department, and they were using the courts against us, and it was the police and the sheriffs in other places. And I remember telling Lou, and I was like, man, I said, they're coming to lock our doors again. And like without hesitation, he was like, take them off. I remember being like, haha, wait, that's a good idea. Like that, yeah. Take the doors off. I'm like, I gotta call you back. So we took the doors off, and we gave them to 2 different members of the gym, and they took them to their homes so that they couldn't put them back on. And they came and arrested us. I don't remember. It was a couple days after we were open for 24 hours. So we just said, we're open 24 hours. We're staying here. We're not leaving. And we're ready to go. And they came and arrested us in the cover of night or the early morning. And of course, there was somebody at the gym, so they caught it all on film, and off to Tucker we went. And it just reignited the fire again. So every time that things would kind of quiet down, they would do something to us. So we came back out of the holding cell and took a day off. And then the next day we came in and we kicked our doors in front on national television. You know, I called Tucker and I was like, hey, you're going to want to have me on the show again. Like, I know I was just on 2 days ago, but I'm going to send you a video in a couple minutes. You just want you to watch it. And it's us kicking the doors in. They put like plywood up and we kicked the doors in our own gym and turned the lights on, turned the music on. And it's like, yo, gym's open. Like, we're not closing. That's just it. Whatever you do to us, we're not closing. And it just built and built and built. And eventually, we had criminal charges against us, criminal contempt of court, civil contempt of court, all these things, millions of dollars of fines, and we just stuck with the plan. And they took our business licenses away from us, fined us for that, and we just stayed open. And one day in May of 2022, the mayor of the township reached out, and he was like, like to our lawyers, like, how long are these guys going to keep this up for? And our lawyer was like, what do you, like, do you not understand what's going on here? Like, they're going to keep going, because we were suing the township for our business licenses, and he was complaining that we were causing the taxpayers harm because they have to pay for their lawyers too. And it's like, well, just give us the business licenses back, just stop being a dick. Like, like, we're open. Just give the licenses back. Step out of the way, because they did it, because the state told them to. And that was the important thing, because 2 years out, we could have been a normal business, and we were still not charging. Still running off of donations, still selling T-shirts. We were selling a lot more T-shirts by that time because people were all around the world were buying them. We sent them to 18 different countries. Wow. And that was how we were able to just keep going. And a week later, our business licenses came in the mail. And there's still other legal stuff going on, but that was the big W.
And what year was that?
2022. Yeah, wow. May of 2022.
So how crazy is it that for 2 years, and now more, because I know there's still stuff going on, but for years and years, all of the bureaucracy, all of the power of the state of New Jersey and the sheriffs and the police officers and the health department and all these different departments were all focused on like a small little gym in New Jersey? It almost seems like a movie, like a joke. Like they would all be focused. They wouldn't have anything better to do than to stop some guys from Jersey from running a small gym. Yeah.
That's it. I mean, New Jersey has 12 attorney generals. 9 of them were assigned to our case. So that's 75% of the state's legal power. Meanwhile, you're familiar with the landscape in Jersey. All of our cities, which historically were beautiful cities. Cities like Camden, cities like Newark, cities like Patterson. These were like industry centers. These were booming economies at one point, and these cities continue to get worse, more violent, more poor, falling apart. Their kids fall behind, and it's like they're letting criminals out while they're letting actual criminals out because they're focused on this little gym in New Jersey that, to date, 2 years in or whatever point we were in, no deaths, no sickness reported, nothing, no outbreaks, none of that. And yeah, I mean, that I think was the ultimate W, is that they just exposed themselves, because even the craziest of people who had really just hook, line, and sinker bought into the COVID narrative, call it, at some point, even they got tired of it, because they're like, just leave these guys, like, stop. Just leave them alone. Like, don't you have anything better to do? And these were people that truly supported what the government was doing at first. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been contacted where, people send me a message, or I got letters or emails, or people came into the gym. I had a guy come into the gym one time, and he's like, you're Ian, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, he's like, dude, he's like, I just wanted to come in. He's like, I have done nothing but trash you online for like a year. He's like, I was convinced that you were just like some punk. Like, you were just, some wannabe tough guy and this and that. And he's like, dude, he's like, eventually I had to start looking at things objectively instead of emotionally. He's like, and he told me the story. He said, I had somebody who passed away from COVID, and he's like, I blamed it on you guys. And he's like, you had nothing to do with it. So people just started turning, and it was just stay on your feet long enough, and eventually they expose themselves to the point of like people still laugh about it. Like people still talk crap to Murphy about the gym. Yeah. Like they still, that will forever be, because they'll always know that this guy fined them millions of dollars. He locked him up. He tried to send him to prison for 5 years. We were facing 4.5 years at one point.
He's a tyrant. and a coward.
Yeah, and you just eventually look like an utter clown, because all we're doing every day is opening the gym, and then the world's pretty much back to normal, to some extent, and you're still fighting with us. And we're still over here just slinging T-shirts and not charging anybody. So, that was, and it was a long road, but it was easily one of the best choices I ever made, personally, for business, for the relationships and the friendships that I've made through it, and the network that has become sort of something I'm familiar with now. Yeah.
So that spun into your speaking career, your book, and even didn't you have a political campaign as well?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that was a stupid idea. On the back end of COVID, I was so involved with things politically that I couldn't see a whole lot other than that. Because it became so hyper political.
It became your life, right?
Yeah, and I became this figure, you know what I mean, to where I went from barely caring about it to eat, sleep, breathe it every day. And I remember thinking on the back end, what next? Do I just go back to normal life? And I had this fear where I'm dude, I don't want to wait for the next thing that these people are going to do. It feels like as just citizens, we're always reacting to bad government. It's we're always running to the fight. We're never on battle footing. It's always oh crap, look what they've got in the library already with kids. They're whatever it is. It's we didn't know it was coming because everybody's so involved in their lives. And obviously you want to be involved in your life, but I think culturally we've been taught leave politics to the politicians. And I don't think there's a greater mistake that you can make, no matter what your political views are, is to just assume that the guy with the tie that matches your political party, you just go and vote for him every 4 years and then turn your back and trust that he's going to do the right thing. Because these people have proved unequivocally that 99.9% of them, especially at the higher levels, not only do they not care about you, but they hate you. You are not in that class to them. They are a career politician. They are better than you. They know better than you, and they will tell you what to do because they can. And so I said, all right, maybe I'll try to shake it up a little bit, and I ran for Congress. And like I said, that was not a good idea. I say that kind of jokingly because we did have a lot of fun, but it's tough, man. There's a reason that good people aren't involved in politics, because it's a nasty game. And I think most people kind of fundamentally understand that, but until you really see it, I had a good understanding of that. And then when I saw it, belly of the beast, I was oh man, this is not the answer to our problems. We've got to get back into our communities. We've got to get back to just being really good people, personal development, personal excellence, being the best person you can, starting with you and your own stuff, and then your family and your community. And that's, you want to make some change, that's how you do it. You don't go vote. That's just, it's not going to do it. And you show me one instance where that's happened and you can't. So we ran, we did pretty well in a three-way race. They dragged me through the mud. I'm an easy target though too. I'm somebody who hasn't always made the best choices and who has a long track record of getting in trouble, of doing stupid shit. And they love that. That's all my opponent ran on. He didn't even have a platform or views. It was just, don't pick that guy because he did this, 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 and this. And it's all true. It's,
But those are the things that have created your character of who you are. Yeah. And I think that's one of the unique things that I've learned from interviewing hundreds of entrepreneurs. A lot of them have a lot of war stories. They've been through a lot. They're unemployable, right? For one reason or another.
Yeah, for sure.
And, how do you bully someone who's already been to jail? Right? It's jail's really scary for someone who hasn't been there.
Yeah.
Right? When they threaten someone and they threaten a business owner and say, hey, close your business or you're going to jail, or sign this or you're going to jail. If you've already been there, you can look the devil in his eyes and tell him to fuck off. It
still wasn't comfortable. I didn't want to go back by any stretch of the imagination, and it's not even, jail sucks and prison sucks. And yeah, it's scary and it's violent and it's all the things that like people think about. But the worst part is you're just wasting your life.
Yeah.
You know, everybody forgets about you. Everybody's life goes on, you know, and you have to sit in what's essentially time out and watch the world turn. You know, I remember I used to watch the highway at night and count the cars, you know, wondering where people were going, wishing I could just be in a car on a highway. So it was scary with that, like, oh, I could go back, but I've lost my freedom in a way that I understand just really at the core, you know, from being there. And I'm not going to give my freedom away to anybody. Yeah. You know, I'm not going to let you control my life, especially when I'm not doing anything wrong. You know, if I'm out here selling fentanyl, you know, like, sure, like bring your worst, you know, but I'm just trying to put food on the table for my family. Like, that's really, and pay off like my college debt, dude. Like, I'm not out here trying to be a bad guy. But yeah, to your point about entrepreneurs kind of having to be a little bit rough and to have to go through things, I think that's a prerequisite. You know, it really is, because it comes out of, I think, frustration for lack of options or lack of options that appeal to you. So it's a matter of betting big on yourself. And you got to be kind of crazy to like push all in on yourself, you know, like to bet heavy and to do that. And it's a scary thing, but you know, I think that's character development, and that's what makes entrepreneurship great and what makes it so attractive and what makes it, I think, such an important thing for people to at least consider. You know, not everybody has to be an entrepreneur, but this country was built by people who were self-employed. You know, at one point, this was a country of 90% self-employed people who worked for themselves in some capacity or another, who could make their own money. You know what I mean? Like, not have to rely on something out of their control, you know, especially now it's just, you know,
a mega corporation.
Yeah, heartless, you know, Globo Corp, you know, they don't care about you either, no less than the government does. You know, so I think and you're seeing I think a huge resurgence of it, where people are frustrated with the options that they have and turning within and saying like, all right, I'm going to do this. And I think that's probably one of the best things to come out of this is that reignited interest, you know, in people saying, I want to be in control of my own life.
Yeah, and I think we're so disconnected in today's society, especially in bigger cities, where you don't know where your food comes from, you don't know where the water comes from, you don't know why the lights are on or how that happened, right?
Yeah, it's true.
You're taking for granted that you press a button on your phone and an Uber Eats shows up or whatever the case may be. And people have forgotten how to live without the government and the system providing for them, right?
Yeah, and I think if like when you have that moment of realization that you're there, I mean, because everybody is or has been in some capacity, where you realize you're like, man, like I'm really not in control of my own life here, you know. And it sounds silly, like, oh, where your food comes from. Like it sounds like that's like an easy thing to critique, but like that's really important, dude. That's what you put in your body every day. Like that's what fuels you. Yeah. You know, you should have a relationship with that, and you should have a say in that. You should have a hand in that. You know, you should be able to make choices that are the best for you. And if you're just relying on, like fully relying, especially, I think is the takeaway, on somebody else for your financial security, for your physical health in all of its forms, in what you eat and, you know, how you spend your free time and whatever. And, you know, all these other things, you have that realization like, man, I'm not free. I'm not really free. I'm not, you know, I couldn't walk away from these things that I have and be okay. I'm reliant. You know, that's the word, reliant on the quote unquote system, whatever it is. And
it's modern day slavery in a lot of ways.
Well, yeah, it's consumerism, you know, like it's blind consumerism to where you're not conscious of just the way you're living your life. You're just on autopilot. Like, you know, when you get in the car and you drive somewhere and you're like, how did I get here? You know, it's like that, but like for your life. You know, you wake up 40 one day and people wake up unhappy. And they realize that not only are they unhappy, but they're miserable and they've been miserable. You know, and they may have pissed away the last 10 years of their life chasing a carrot, you know, in a corporate ladder or whatever it is. And that's not anything against climbing the corporate ladder, because there's great benefit in that too, if that's for you. But, it's just that not being in the driver's seat of your own life. And business is just, for me at least, and I think for a lot of people, is a great way to be forced to pay attention to every detail of your life. Because if you're not executing and you're not healthy and you're not waking up early and you're not, task oriented and this and that, you're not going to succeed in business. So it forces you to become those things. And the more that you do that, the more free you ultimately become.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that I always tell people, because they're looking for a savior, right? They think Trump is going to save them. They think they thought Obama was going to save them. I don't think anyone thinks Biden's going to save them. I feel bad if that's what they think, right? But a lot of politicians get idolized, and they want to vote their way out of it. They're like, I'm in a bad situation, I'm going to vote my way out of it. And the thing that I always tell people is vote with your dollars, right?
Yeah.
Vote with your dollars. Participate in the capitalist system and support small businesses, support the businesses whose ideologies and whose business practices align with what you believe in, and then that's how you create the future that you're going to want to have your kids raised in.
Yeah, because that forms relationships and it forms big networks. And those networks, when people come together, man, if there's anything I learned, I've learned a lot, and I say that a lot, but if there's anything I learned from the whole incident with the gym, is that when people come together and really come together and stand with each other and support each other and encourage each other and all of these things and back each other up, bro, you can't mess with us. Like, they couldn't stop us. They tried everything. And we had so much support, so much overlap in the people who supported us in terms of values, that we were unstoppable. And you can do that in your own community. I know this guy who lives in South Carolina, and he's it's kind of like a small town area, but they have a citizens group, and it's like a nonpartisan thing. It actually started in their church, and they all came together and they sort of outlined, what they cared about as citizens of this area, right? Whatever county that they're in. And they came together and they started just meeting and talking and connecting and really getting to know each other. And they started sort of putting money into this fund, and they've used that money and that collective power to essentially lock up their county to where Democrats and Republicans don't have any control there. Where they've done things like, I think a Walmart was going to come in, and what they did instead was they bought the property that Walmart was going to buy. Collectively, I don't know how they did it, but collectively they came in, bought the property, built a facility there, and they have like 3 United States small to medium-sized businesses running out of there in their town or in their county, instead of slapping a super Walmart in there. And you said vote with your dollars. And when you spend small business, even medium-sized business, businesses that are not beholden to like the stock market and shareholders and they're not owned by other businesses and BlackRock and all these things, but real businesses, small businesses, local businesses, mid-sized businesses, when you spend your dollars there, you're giving them your money. That money filters through the company. Most of the people who work there live locally. The money stays there. It stays in your ecosystem. When you go to Walmart and you spend money there, that money gets siphoned right up the food chain to that, they talk about the 1% owning 10% of the wealth or whatever it is, or the top 10% owning 90% of the wealth, whatever that figure is. That's what you're contributing to when you're not paying attention to your dollars. So yeah, you want to take control of your life, that's what you do. But it's harder to do that. It's easier, to just support a Walmart because they have everything that you need. It's one stop and it's the cheapest. Instead of buying your milk, from the raw dairy guy that you got to drive 20 minutes to go get it from, or whatever it is, or, going with a chain kinder care for your kids instead of taking the time to find maybe somebody who you could trust as a nanny. And all these things are hard. They're not easy to do, but you're rewarded in the long run for it, for that extra effort, that extra dollar that you do have to spend. You're rewarded in the long run by the preservation of your community, and that's, but again, you said it's easier to just go vote. It's, okay. And that's not against, like a Trump or anything like that. But like, if you think one man's going to fix everybody's problems, you're delusional. Even if he wants to, even if that's truly who he is, and he just is just the most, altruistic, compassionate person in the world, and he's just going to lay himself over the fire for you. Why would you not help him? Go vote. That's cool. I'm not telling anybody to not go vote, but like, don't just go vote and then like,
yeah, let me know when that's fixed.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. I mean, that's sort of the attitude, though. And it's like, no, man, you want to vote, go vote, but like, also, you got local candidates in your area that are running for school district, and they need people to hand out flyers. And I know it's hot, and I know summer's coming, but guess what? If not, the purple hair weirdo who wants to put a litter box in your kid's classroom is going to get in. Yeah. So is the Tuesday afternoon knocking on doors worth it? Yeah. Is it uncomfortable? Yeah. But you should probably go knock on some doors or whatever it is, or go support your local business, whatever it is. Go start a local business. All of these things contribute. There's not a blueprint that you have to follow precisely. You don't have to. If you don't want to be involved politically, you don't have to be. You can help out your community in other ways, but it all centers around this idea of business and good business and what I would call real capitalism. Like not crony corporate capitalism, but being involved and being involved in commerce and learning and teaching and providing services to your community and doing it with a full heart and being an example, and being a mentor and like all of these things contribute to a better society. It's just, you can't just think that politics is going to solve it, because we've been doing politics for quite a while and things haven't gone in. I can say, I think for as long as any of us have been alive, things have not gotten better. They've gotten worse. Yeah. So maybe we're missing something there, and that's the contribution of the individual.
Yeah, and leaders in our own communities, right?
Yeah.
So before we started the show, we did speak about your partnership with Andy Frisella and being signed as an athlete, and how that came at kind of a critical time. And so I wanted you to talk a little bit about that, how that came about, and more than just the business agreement, but also kind of why you think it was important in that time, because I know he did that with a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people reached out to me during all this. A lot of people who I admired, people I had known of and really admired. Some people.
Was he even on your radar, though?
I knew who he was, but I wasn't.
Because he's kind of niche. It's so funny because there's bubbles of fame and influence, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
like, there's people that don't know who Gary Vee is, and I'll talk to them.
And then there's other people who are like, you don't know who Gary Vee is? Like,
it's like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, exactly.
He's up on my wall when I go to sleep at night. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I knew who he was. I didn't have that much of an understanding. I knew.
Well, he's also big in the fitness. Space, right?
Yeah, First Form. And I had known about First Form, but again, I was just before COVID. I was just kind of in my own lane. I was just it was a time in my life where the only thing that was going to make my life better was me going to work and working hard every single day.
Well, and that gym was your whole life, right?
Yeah.
You came out of prison. Mm-hmm. You worked.
I had so much catching up to do.
And
you
put your whole life was in this business when they told you to shut it down.
Yeah. So I was aware of who he was, and it was after one of the Tucker Carlson episodes, and he had messaged me, and was just kind of encouraging. He was like, "Yo, man, I just watched you on Tucker." I would get hundreds of messages like that, from quote unquote regular people to people like Andy. And, I said, thanks, man. I appreciate it. And, I followed him and he was following me, and he would just check back on me like every day. It was more than just like a thumbs up. Like he was going the extra mile, and far from the only person who was, but he was like every day. And then he's like, hey man, like bro, tell me what's going on. Like he took like a really, really, really deep interest in it. What I would say was like a personal interest. You know, he wanted to know the details. He didn't want to know like the short news clip. Like he wanted to know what was happening, why it was happening, what we were going to do. Did we have a game plan? Did we have resources? All these things. And we quickly became friends. You know, we just kind of started chatting back and forth, and we'd spend time on the phone, kind of just talking about how crazy things were, and we aligned in a lot of ways. And he just kept asking, like, how can I help? And at that point, it was like, dude, I don't even know how to help myself. Like, I don't even know what we need. You know, like, you know, it's we're just like this. You know, we're on guard all the time.
It's like
you know,
David versus Goliath.
Yeah, the wolves are at the gate. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like the wolves are at the perimeter, and I'm just making sure one doesn't sneak up on me because things were coming from every angle. And time went by, and again, he was just every day. How can I help? What's going on? What do you need? And he was very big in opening me to a whole nother network. You know, every big person who had, not even every big person, I did every podcast that asked me to, every news appearance that asked me to, because it was just an opportunity to get in front of somebody else and tell our story. And if that person was kind enough to bring me on their podcast and introduce me to their network, you know, that was more support, you know, and that was what we needed. So he was big in that. And then, you know, one day he shot me an email, and I opened it up, and it was a contract for First Form. And I was like, I didn't understand, you know, what it was. I was like, what's this? And he's like,
what is First Form? People don't know.
So First Form is started out as a nutritional supplement company working in foundational health. So it's not just protein powder, it's everything. It's your multivitamins, things like glutamine, things that are nootropics that work with, you know, mental cognition. It's a full line of foundational health products. And that's how they started. They've been around quite a while now. And now they have grown in size. They're, I mean, by far dominant in that industry. And they've sort of gone into what I would phrase like the active lifestyle brand. So, you know, a competitor to Nike. I mean, it's an apparel brand. These guys sponsor the same type of athletes that like Red Bull does, you know, guys and girls who do crazy stuff, you know, hunters, people who race. It's active lifestyle all the way around. We have athletes that are everything from a bodybuilder to Baja truck drivers to you name it. All just sort of united by a love of health and fitness and wanting to be healthy and perform at our best. So he sent me a contract for it and invited me on as an athlete. And, you know, I had been a competitive strongman in the past. I was always in the gym. I never really took to like bodybuilding, but I liked strongman. So I was a competitive athlete at the time. And I was blown away because I was like, dude, what did I do to deserve this? Like, this is, you know, that's not something that's huge. That's not, and again, not throwing any shade at any brand, but that's not like, hey, we'll give you an affiliate code and you're a sponsored athlete. This is like, you know, you have serious responsibilities. You're a face of the brand in some aspect, and you know, there's a lot of benefit that comes with it, but there's also a lot of responsibility. And I was like, dude, why me? You know, and like, I remember saying like, you don't even know me. And he said, something along the lines of, he said, I know who you are though, you know, and he's like, you're a brother. Like, you are, like, I'm not going to let you face this alone. Like, yeah, I don't know you, but I admire you and I respect you. And you know, it's generous. It's not peanuts at all. And I was like, but dude,
he knew what you stood for.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's what he said. He's like, I know you.
Yeah.
I know who you are. You know, I haven't known you for years, but I know what's inside of you. I know your heart. You know, and not only do I support it, but like, you know, I really support it, and you know, we're friends. You know, like really friends, not like, hey, that's my friend. It's like, no, I'll go to war with you. You know, in whatever capacity that I can help. And I remember asking him, like, I said to him, I said, you don't even know me. Like, you don't know me. And like, why would you do this? Yeah. And he said, I'm not stupid enough to think that when they're done with you, that they won't come for me. He's like, I've been unaffected by this. They're located out in the Midwest, so they didn't have the same type of restrictions, and it's a different type of business. They have a totally different setup. Their employees could work remotely, even though I think they never did.
And a lot of e-commerce, right? A lot of
yes, a lot of it is e-commerce, and it's business to business. They sell in gyms and nutrition stores, and they have a whole line of athletes and legionnaires who sell their product, and they do big numbers. And I just remember being like, man, this guy gets it, dude. Like, he gets it. Like, yeah, they will come for you. Like, after they destroy all the small businesses, they'll come after all of that's a medium ones, mid-sized companies. And I just remember being like, man, like, this dude is really, like, he gets it. He's not just like, hey, I support you because I don't like COVID. He gets the bigger picture, is that this was an attack on regular people and their capacity to be free via participating in the capitalist system. And he said, if I can support you, then we won't get to the point where there's not a lot of us, when they've beaten all you guys at the bottom, and then the last line of defense is the couple medium-sized companies who don't bend the knee, because companies were ready to bend the knee. I mean, anybody who could bend the knee and benefit from it did, in terms of big corporations. I mean, they all went in line, and what happened? They all made a ton of money. So yeah, and I mean, we've been best friends ever since. He's somebody I rely on for everything. He's, I think, what is an example of somebody who's taken that idea of entrepreneurship and really turned it into the dream. You know what I mean? This is a guy who grew up on a dirt road. He wasn't given the keys to the city. He grew up and had tons of good opportunities, but didn't grow up with a silver spoon, and has amassed just huge influence and financial freedom. And they employ close to 2,000 people, and there's even more who make money via legionnaires and affiliate programs and other businesses that buy their products and they're hot commodities for them, nutrition stores and stuff. So he's a great example of somebody who's done it the right way. People know him and know First Form as this huge company, but they started out as one nutrition store in Springfield, Missouri. And it was two guys who, like you said, were just kind of crazy enough to bet on themselves and cancel out the criticism, and just not listen to the naysayers and say, I'm gonna find my way forward myself, and they have. And that's what capitalism is all about, is building something that affects people in a positive way. And anybody who's touched by that brand, whether they're a consumer, whether they're somebody like myself who, is a contractor, or their employees, or they're the people that are the beneficiaries of the many sort of charity events that they're involved in. I mean, they're involved in some sort of charity event every week, because they have the resources to do it, and they understand that when they give to people, it makes everything better for everybody. So great example of a company that is somewhere where you'd want to support your money, or support them with your money, and that's one of many examples. There's plenty, ranging from your local deli down the street to a pretty large size multi-billion-dollar company that's still privately owned and it doesn't have any special outside interests. And that's one of the greatest things that came out of COVID was my association with First Form, because everybody who's involved in it truly believes in it. It's just an excellent example of the good that you can create outside of the monetary profit, the good that you can create with just an idea of going into business. That should be something that's a source of inspiration for anybody who kind of wants to win in life.
Yeah, and they're voting with their dollars, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Looking at where do we want to make business decisions that, yes, they're going to be profitable, but they're also going to align with our values, right?
Yeah. No, they do things. Everything about that company, again, is just an example of doing things the right way. They there's like, these guys aren't using AI, to make, they're employing people every step of the way, from the guy that's packaging your stuff all the way up to the top execs of the corporation, and the moms on the internet who support the product and make money off of being affiliated with it. They are a net positive for everybody involved, and that is exactly what good capitalism does. It doesn't leach from the ecosystem, right? It's not vacuuming dollars up. I mean, there's plenty of dollars going up. They're making money. It's not a charity organization, but the money is just recycled. I mean, they're based out of St. Louis, and they do so much stuff around the country. But in St. Louis, I mean, that's like a legendary brand, because they've done so much good in a city that struggles, and in an area that there's not a whole lot of good business, and they stick out like, in the best way possible. But yeah, I mean, and I know thousands, hundreds, if not thousands, of young entrepreneurs who have followed Andy's lead. I mean, Andy's got a podcast, hundreds of episodes that he did for free, and it was called the MFCEO Project. And if you want to learn how to do business, just listen to every episode. He goes over everything that you'll ever need to know. And I know guys who have built very nice businesses for themselves, who have, you talk to them, and I call it the Frisella blueprint, because it's if you have questions and you need to figure out how to do the right thing, what the right thing is, blah, 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 that it's all there. And that's a free resource, and it's cool, man, because that network has empowered my life in ways that are hard to measure. But I know that I'm far from the only one. And again, going back to, you want to be a force for good in your community, you want to see change, you want to see positive change, that is exactly how you do it.
Yeah, entrepreneurs that can change the world. No, I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, I know we're running low on time. I want to change gears real quick and talk a little bit of current events and foreign policy and all the crazy things that are happening in the world. So I feel like, to your point earlier, a lot of people have gotten a lot more political in the last 4 years since COVID, right? A lot of people realize, wait, politics might actually affect me, right? And maybe I should pay attention to these things. And I feel like a lot of people have become red-pilled and maybe went from being apolitical, or maybe even being on the left, right? And started following more conservative accounts because they didn't agree with what happened during COVID, or other things that happened over the last 4 years, the economy under Biden, et cetera. And one of the things that I've noticed personally, and I think you've noticed it as well, is that there are kind of two types of conservative influencers online. You have some that are signed to these big mega corporations, these political action committees, and we won't say their names, but we know who they are. These big media companies or big supposed nonprofits, et cetera. And they're sides of these organizations, and they tend to toe the line when it comes to certain issues, right? Yeah. So one of the big issues that arose over the last 4 years, besides COVID and the pandemic, was the war in Ukraine, right? We had the war in Ukraine, and we had all these conservative voices saying, America first, we shouldn't be going to Ukraine, no more wars, let's end all the wars, no more military spending outside of the United States, right? Keep our troops here, keep our troops home. And then when it came to the war in Israel, all of a sudden it was like, they're our greatest ally, and we should be going over there, let's send them more money, right? And as someone who's informed, like myself, and I know you are, it's really easy to see the way that the headlines are manipulated. So, for example, this past week, they passed a new stimulus bill, sending money overseas. There were, I believe it was $40 billion sent to Ukraine and $25 billion sent to Israel. And every conservative account that I follow, who I know signed to a major think tank, mentioned the money that went to Ukraine and somehow forgot.
You noticed that too?
Yeah, forgot that there was another $25 billion that went to Israel, right? The war that they do support. So I wanted to hear from you firsthand your thoughts on the situation that's happening overseas, and there's only so much that you can get from a tweet. So I'd love to hear from you firsthand.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a supporter of any war. I think a lot of people like misunderstand my position because it's like, oh, you don't like those people, and it's like, no, I'm tired of the people that I grew up with coming home with PTSD or blowing their fucking brains out, as a result of what did we accomplish after 9/11? What did we accomplish with 20 years in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and all these places, other than a bunch of our young men coming home barely able to function in society? I mean, even the most fortunate of veterans come home with issues, and a lot of them come home dead. A lot of them come home physically maimed, and an even greater percentage come home with things that they should not have to carry with them mentally. And I've, from my own friends, from people that I've met, from veterans sort of activities I've been involved in, I mean, you've got to get sick of that at some point. And for me, I just got sick of it very early on. I lost track very, very early on after high school of friends that went away and either didn't come back, or who came back different men, and not in a good way, with a sadness in their eyes, and these are people that I know, so you can tell the difference. So I've never been a proponent of this idea that we need to go save everybody, and it's never worked out for us. I mean, you can go further than 20 years. You can go to Vietnam. You can go to all these other foreign wars, and all we get is a generation of young men mutilated, for lack of a better word. And, you look at other things, right? You look at it culturally, right? So we have this whole thing now where, like, where are, one of the things I heard during COVID and during all this political upheaval is like, where are the men at? Where are the men to stand up? We sent them to foreign wars. All the strong men, of our culture, of the American culture, all of them, no matter what race, where they come from, whether they've been here for years or they're a first gen or whatever, they're an immigrant, who came here and believes in what this country is. We send all the best and the strongest and the most courageous, and they either don't come back or they come back broken. And then we wonder why there's no strong sense of masculinity in our communities. It's because we're destroying families. It's because the guys that do come home can't be good fathers because they're so messed up from what they've had to do over there. And that doesn't come from doing the right thing. It doesn't, and I don't mean to say that to insult what anybody's done over there, but you're not going to have a clear conscience when you're going over there and you realize that you shouldn't be over there, but you're already there. And then you've got to fight for your life. And you're over there with people who do hate you. And you do have to do things that you should never have to do. And then you've got to come home and face your kids. And you've got to reintegrate into society. And we expect these men to be good fathers when they're up to their neck and they're treading water. So that's why I don't support the stuff. But when it comes specifically to the current state that we're supporting, look at the relationship. Take all of the emotion out of it, take all the religion out of it, take all the God's chosen people out of it, all that nonsense, and look at things logically. Is that we have sent these people hundreds of billions of dollars since the creation of their state. They have free college. We have free college. How's that work? How's that work when in a city like Philadelphia, there's a graduation rate of 48%? That's 48% of the kids that actually make it to high school. And we got free college over there? Where's our priorities at? But the thing that upsets me the most with that one is if you disagree, you're automatically a hateful person. Yeah, and it's such a cop-out. It's such a cop-out.
Republicans and conservatives, they only believe in racism if it's against Jewish people. It's hilarious.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is. I mean, look at all the anti-white activity that's gone on throughout the years, right? Yeah. I saw something, they were upset that Jewish students weren't allowed in the classroom, right? Which is not right at all. Any stretch of the imagination. Nobody should ever bar you from going anywhere. You should never feel threatened. I don't support any of that. But they didn't say shit when BLM was blocking the white kids. They didn't care about that. And these are the Republicans. These are the people that are the champions of like conservative white America. Where were they at?
Yeah, facts don't care about your
They
feelings.
didn't care because I remember at ASU, they weren't letting white kids in. It's the same exact thing they did. Where's the outrage? Why are we worried about another country when we have more than enough problems on our own hands? And we're just, it's just a fool's errand. We wind up losing in the end. We wind up paying for the destruction, and then we wind up cleaning up the mess. Now they're talking about bringing Palestinian refugees here. So we're going to pay for the bombs, right? We're going to pay for the destruction, and then we're going to import the refugees that everybody's calling terrorists, right? Because that's the talking line of the Republicans is like, oh, all of them support Hamas. Oh, the entire place is, we've all just, we've dehumanized an entire population of people, and they're all terrorists. But now we're going to bring them over here. Where's the logic? And it's, the thing that frustrates me is that the right especially talks about facts over feelings and all this, but when it comes to the discussion about the United States' relationship with Israel, the first thing they do is call you an anti-Semite. And you're there's hate in your heart, and you're Hitler, and you're all these things, and it's like, nah, man, I just kind of care about what's going on in my own city, and my groceries are like $100. I can't leave the grocery store without spending $100. Can we fix that before we send money to blow up women and children? And again, you say something like that, and it's like, well, the terrorists are hiding behind them, and it's like, okay. If somebody kidnaps your wife, do you want the cops to pull out a shotgun and shoot? No.
Yeah, or
would you want them to de-escalate the situation, maybe?
Or if a criminal in Brooklyn ran back into the projects, you wouldn't blow up the whole project.
Yeah, no, just nuke the building.
Yeah, just nuke the whole building.
Yeah, just bring the Apaches in. The guy that robbed the bank, follow him all the way in, and then just fire the missiles into the building because he's hiding behind civilians. None of it makes sense, and it's, again, the reason it pisses me off is that these are the people for years is they've been saying facts over feelings. And when you bring up facts, they don't want to hear it, and they want to name call. And they're also not only the people that say facts over feelings, but these are the people that have been complaining that that's what the left does. Oh, they just call you racist, which is true. That's what the left does. But you
guys are doing it too now.
The same exact thing.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I just can't support the idea that it's worth killing innocent people to catch a few bad guys. The world's always going to be a bad, scary place. There always is going to be bad guys. If that's your strategy, is just to kill anything near it, the world is going to eventually hate you. People are going to get tired of it. You can only see it for so long. You can only ignore it for so long. You wouldn't want that done to you. If you lived in that building, you wouldn't want it blown up. Because you probably have nothing to do with what's going on, and that's the truth of the matter. And people just need to look at that. It doesn't have to be political. Just look at it objectively. How does it impact me? How does it impact my community? How does it impact the ones that I love? Our priorities are a mess. We've had an open border for how long? And they haven't been able to do that, but they can crush some college kids and make sure that they're not protesting. Which again, the college kids are. I'm not saying they're right, but they responded super fast to that. And we still have a wide open border. They couldn't mobilize and figure out how to stop the thousands and thousands of military-aged men who are just coming over the border.
From all the other countries too.
Yeah, and again, they're people too. I'm not saying that they're all bad people, but hey, maybe we should get a handle on what's happening here first. And no, we have to spend, we have to throw money at it, and it's that's why I'm not invited to these Republican kind of events anymore, is because I just,
you didn't want to toe the line.
Yeah, and that happened even before that, even with Ukraine. Ukraine was popular with Republicans right away. You had guys like Dan Crenshaw who were like, who were telling stories of the ghost of Kiev, which turned out to not even exist, where, this one guy shot down 20 fighters. And, the politicians at that, you've got to realize the same exact mechanisms that brought you the story of COVID and brought you the story of George Floyd and brought you the Iraq war, and the same mechanisms go off. That should be an alarm. When the news starts talking about it every day, you should just, in general, no matter where you stand politically, you should just not believe it. And then start from a position of doubt and work your way towards the truth. If it's on television and your nightly news anchor is talking about it, just assume he's lying. And if he's not, you'll work your way there. But just don't take that headline at face value. There's still people who talk about 40 dead babies, and we've never seen that. That whole story just went away.
Yeah, Ben Shapiro shared an AI image. It got
and this is somebody who's a voice, who's a conservative voice of. I think that's his favorite thing to say is facts over feelings. He showed an AI-generated image.
Got fact-checked immediately. And never took it back.
Never took it back, just moved on to the next thing, because all they need to do is get their foot in the door. 40 dead babies, or 40 decap, whatever the story was, is the same exact thing as 2 weeks. It's enough to get the
weapons of mass destruction.
Exactly. It's enough to get the machine moving, and once that starts, it's going back to what I said very early on. These people don't give back powers that they take very easily, and they don't give back rights and stuff like that. The war machine doesn't slow down once we've leveled all of Gaza. There's things that now go into motion that are beyond our ability to just say, hey, we don't want to do this. So that you have a responsibility to say, nah, I don't support that. And if you don't like me, I've lost 75,000 followers since the start of October 7th. And these are people who they all want to tell you about it on the way out the door. I used to follow you during COVID, and now I don't. Congratulations, man. Get lost. You'll be just like the guy that was telling me that he used to hate me during COVID, 2 years from now, when, your dollar's worth even less, and you finally realize that, hey, maybe the guy on the television lied to you, it's silly.
I love that way of thinking. I actually wanted to tell my wife this. I was thinking this last night, and I was like, I need to explain this way of thinking to her. Whenever you see something on the news, immediately think the opposite's happening and try to work your way backwards.
Yeah, just assume with I don't believe you.
Yeah.
I mean, that should be a sort of a position in life in general. Yeah. If you come to me with a lucrative business idea and you tell me you're going to make me $1 million, I'll listen to you, but I don't believe you until I'm not going to say, oh, well, it must be true.
Where do I send my money?
Yeah, okay, sure. It's okay, I don't believe you. Explain it to me. And then I'll form my opinions. But we don't seem to be able to do that when it comes to the news. And, again, the same mechanisms.
There's those crypto scams online where it's like, hey, I'm Elon Musk. Send me 1 Bitcoin. I'll send you 2.
Yeah.
And people still fall for it because they're still doing that
That's
scam.
amazing. That's amazing. That is amazing.
It's working because
yeah.
they're still doing that scam. So someone's sending the money. So those are the same people that believe the headlines on mainstream news. I grew up in New York, so I would walk Times Square when I was a kid, and so I was used to all these people trying to sell you stuff, right? Try to sell you their CD or their mixtape or whatever the hell they had. And so I got used to not believing and trusting people, right? Crackheads will come up to you and say, oh, I had a friend of mine who was really bad, addicted to crack. His family was in the mafia, so he was like a rich, spoiled kid. He wasn't, but his family was. He's a rich, spoiled kid. And he would go around asking people for money for crack, and he would make up the craziest stories. He would say, hey, my wife's in the hospital, and I just need money for the Uber. So just give me $50, and I'm going to come back. I'm going to pay you back. And then he'll get the $50 and move on to the next sucker or whatever. And so I witnessed that as a young kid. And so it got me to build this muscle of not trusting what people say. But if you grew up in a small town where everyone tells the truth,
true.
You might just assume, oh, well, Fox News said it's true, or CNN said it's true.
Why would they lie to me?
Yeah, why would they lie to me? They're here to, what's CNN's headline? Unbiased?
Yeah. All right. That's interesting. It's not what I would have went with, but no, it's, again, it's all those same mechanisms. If you start seeing like it advertised on television, and you start seeing like, you know,
Well, with social media, it's easy to get confused because you think these influencers are independent. If you don't do your research, I was telling people, hey, keep cashing those PragerU checks. People who are obviously not Jewish, and
all of a sudden they take an impromptu trip to Israel.
Like, dude, keep cashing them PragerU checks, man.
Yeah. I went head to head with a couple of them where I said, I was like, you know,
yeah,
like
the little gay black one. What's his name?
Xavier.
Yeah,
Xavier's one. What's the other one's name?
Come on, bro.
DC Drano. It's like, bro, you've never mentioned a word about Israel, and now how did you get over there? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, who paid for the plane ticket?
No, so that's what I said. I was like, show me the receipt, because I bet you don't have one. I bet you they booked it for you.
Wow.
Like, if I'm wrong, show me.
Yeah.
Hey, you don't got to show your whole credit card, but come on, prove me wrong. And it's like, oh, crickets, look at that. And it's like, you know, so yeah, you're right. Social media has made it even harder to know the truth, but it's just that stance can solve everything. You're lying. Now let me hear.
Now
the story.
let me see the receipts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And if you got the receipts, hey, I guess you're right. You know, or if you can convince me in a way that's objective, then okay. But you know, they've got such a good thing going, and it's because everything moves so fast, and you know, people are busy. People are busy with their lives.
Yeah, what's the saying? A lie will travel around the world 100 times before the truth gets out of bed, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, that is, man, that's true. Like, that's true 100 times over, you know, and we've seen it over and over again, and it's just, it baffles me. But I think with all of these things, what you've seen, like talking about like these political patterns, right? The next current thing, I call it. I think the time between the time that people start to like smell the BS is getting shorter and shorter each time. You know, like COVID was like the long one, right? Like COVID really took a long time for people to kind of like shake from that spell. You know, and BLM was pretty long, but it wasn't as long as COVID. People caught on to BLM a little faster than they caught on to COVID. And the Ukraine war, you know, like there's always this initial response where it's outrage because they know how to manipulate you emotionally. These people are not stupid. They're far from stupid. They're very smart. You know, you've got to give them that. You know, they wouldn't get into positions of power if they weren't smart. You know, power attracts a certain type of individual, and you can't be a dummy and be powerful and influential. So it attracts people who are smart. So you have to understand that, like, what you see is designed to make you feel a certain way. You know, it's so you get that emotional sort of response, and you get everybody fired up, the dead babies, George Floyd, whatever it is, and you know. But people are definitely there's a much shorter time to where they're like, wait a second. And I think you're seeing that now with the Israel thing because the Republicans are losing that unified support that they had on things like COVID. They even had a lot of support on Ukraine for a while, and you know, and it's just kind of, well, yeah, it's a good thing.
When you see the blank check that's getting written and you're like, wait, what? Who signed this check for X amount of billions? You know, and why do we keep signing these checks? Mm-hmm. I think any American, it doesn't matter where you stand, you're going to say, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah, like I said
and who's
earlier,
benefiting? Right?
All you got to do is go to the grocery store and be like, what is going on here? You know, like, again, no matter where you stand on things, if you go to the grocery store and buy 10 items, you are going to get charged $100. I mean, Miami, it's probably $2. You know what I mean? I think there's like an entrance fee at the grocery store down here. Things are so expensive.
Cover charge.
Yeah, cover charge. But, you know, I think it's getting to the point where what's happening is so, it's not the end of the world, obviously, but it's getting bad. It's just people are going to realize when things just aren't adding up. And when they're looking around their communities, especially people that are living in cities that are in the lower income brackets, the you know, low income bracket and the middle lower class, these people are really feeling this. I mean, I do fairly well for myself. I'm far from a rich man, but like I'm feeling this, and I'm doing fairly okay financially, and I'm still like, man, like I got a budget. Like I've really got a budget. Like, you know, and it's funny because I'm making more money than I was like pre-COVID, and I was more comfortable back then. Now, granted, my lifestyle has sort of increased a little bit,
sure,
you know, obviously, but I mean, I'm making much more money, and I feel more stressed now because I can't step out of the house without spending $100. And that, I think, is playing into this sort of awakening where people are like, wait, so how much money did we just send to these people? You know, like, man, I don't have anything in my bank account. Like, I'm living paycheck to paycheck over here. I'm struggling to pay rent. I'm struggling to pay my car note. And we cut how many billions? You know, especially if they're wise enough to figure out what a billion is or what a trillion is. You know, that was one of the things I said early on with the stimulus bill. It's like, it's hard to conceptualize what a trillion is, right? And I used to, it was an anecdote for people. If you count second by second, it'll take you 55,000 years to get to a trillion, counting 1 second at a time. You know, that's, if you're not quite sure how much money that is, that'll put it into perspective for you. You know, 55,000 years it'll take you.
So we will never live to see a trillion
No,
seconds.
if you made $1 a second, you would never get to a trillion. I think, and that number could be wrong, but it's right around there.
Yeah.
Like, and we're just sending out bees. Here's 30 billion for you. Here's 30 billion for you. And it would be like, man, if you looked at some of this stuff and you're like, hey, we fixed it. Like, cool. You know, I think if the Ukraine thing popped off and we sent over the first however many billions and it kind of like cooled down and wrapped up, I think people might be a little bit, okay,
we did it.
Yeah, America, team, you know, world police. But I mean, that's been what, 2 years now? That's been going on, and we're still sending money.
And they're trying to put in a bill now that even if the president changes, the payments to Ukraine would continue for like the next 8 years, and they're trying to get it passed now.
Yeah,
the new president couldn't change it; it would just be auto pay. You know.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Just give them the account number and the routing number, and just let them deposit it. Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, you can't ignore that forever. Even people who try not to be in politics or are apolitical or are totally ignorant, you know, whether they mean to be or not, are feeling the effects. And you know, it's just a matter of like, are you going to do something about it while you can? You know, because there is a closing window. In a lot of ways, I think that, again, going back to the idea of like being involved in your community, that may not solve the problem that's going on overseas, but like you can't throw ice cubes at the sun either and expect to win. Like you've got to get some W's on your home court and where you can first. And yeah, you've got all these forces working against you, but if you can elevate your own life to where you're less impacted by them, you're going to be able to help others kind of come up that ladder behind you as well. And then, you know, when you're a little bit closer, you can toss some ice cubes and see if you can hit it. But like right now, like trying to stop that. I mean, I talk about it a lot because I have a platform, but you know, you're not going to stop these people from what they're doing. Like you need what you need to do is stop paying attention to these people and start paying attention to what's going on locally in and around your community, so that you can get people into office that are going to do the right thing, who are going to step up, who are going to, you know, make a change, and who are going to say no in some capacity. And then when you've got that first line built, that first layer, now you can start to reach up a little bit higher and go at the federal government. But if you're not able to impact your local community, I mean, if I can't stop, I live in St. Augustine, if I can't stop the way they're building in St. Augustine, you know, it's not going to matter, you know, because I'm going to have the same problems that any big city has in my nice, quiet city of St. Augustine. So what is it, you know, it's going to affect, you have to do the stuff that's going to affect you right now. And that comes back to personal excellence. That comes back to, you know, all the stuff that we talked about earlier, where you're just regaining control of your life and getting reconnected and reintegrated with being involved in all these aspects.
Yeah, when I first moved to Puerto Rico, I wanted to run for governor. That was my thing. And then I got there. I started setting up all these meetings. I met with the governor. I met with the Secretary of Education. and then a couple of months later, they're on the news, and they're like about to go to jail, and they're getting kicked out of office. And I was like, maybe I don't want to be in politics. Maybe it's too dirty, right?
Well, if you do the job correctly in whatever capacity that you wind up being in, it's a thankless job. It's a very difficult job. It's not a very rewarding job in terms of finance,
Unless you're dirty.
Yes, but if you do the job correctly, it's not. But yes, and that's why it attracts these people, because it is a fast track to success. Most politicians are not independently successful. Name one. You can't. Maybe Donald Trump. But these people, it attracts these people who are willing to bend the rules and eventually break and manipulate the rules, because it attracts people who have never built anything. They all go to college. They all go to law school, which law school is a good accomplishment, but you didn't go out and be a lawyer and like win cases. You just like went into politics and became a cog in the big machine. And, if you don't go in it with a bad heart, which I do believe there are plenty of people who do see it right from the rip, it can change you if you are not strong enough. I got a taste of it. Oh, let's fly you out. Let's fly you out. Let's, nice steak dinner. You're going to meet with some donors and this and that. And it's like, if you're not, I lost a lot of support, because I wouldn't bend on certain stuff. Ukraine, the Republicans were still all behind Ukraine when I was running. And, I was asked something at a donor, and he was going to cut me a big check. And he said, what's your position on the war in Ukraine? I said, I don't think we should be involved. And he said, I think we should. And I said, well, we disagree. And he's like, well, would you support, that? And I said, no. And I didn't get that check, So that whole system plays to weak people. Because like I said, if you do it correctly, it's not an easy road at all to even get there. But when you do, you're going to face very, very, very strong forces of resistance.
And you need a lot of money to run.
And you need a lot of money to run, so, and that's part of the reason why Donald Trump was so successful, at least in the beginning, is that he was able to finance his own campaign. It's hard because either you're going to lie to donors and then they're going to come after you, right? You're just not going to get reelected. Or you're going to have to change your values, or sell out your constituents. You know what I mean? Like, you tell them one thing and do another. Like, that's what politicians do. They say one thing, and then, they know nobody pays attention to most of the voting. So they'll just go, yeah, I'm anti-war. Here's a spending bill for Ukraine.
But not Ukraine.
Yeah,
Ukraine,
exactly.
we need it.
Yeah, no, this one's important. And so is Israel, and so is Afghanistan and Syria and all these other ones, and it's tough, man. And I think it's probably designed like that, to keep the good people out, because it's a sacrifice. And we've gotten so far away from that in terms of how we look at politicians. Plato wrote about it in The Republic, in the story of Socrates, where Socrates talks about how rulers, he's talking about like the perfect city-state, so the perfect government in some sense. And he says that it should be like the military, where you're just paid enough and you're taken care of. So when you're a politician, you shouldn't have a big salary, right? You shouldn't have all these things. You should have your housing taken care of, and it should be modest. You should have a salary of some degree, and it should be modest. Enough to survive, but like not $250,000 a year, not free health insurance for the rest of your life, no matter what you do. It should be something that you want to get into, do your time, do it correctly, and then get out and get on with your life, and then go be successful and go start a business and go do all the things. But it's not. It's the longer I can stay here, the better this is for me. So I'm going to, again, whether I have a bad heart or not, I'm going to bend and break and dance around the rules and play the game as long as I possibly can, and then ride this as long as I can, because I don't want to go out there and work. And that's what this system attracts. And until we can dismantle that, it's an uphill battle in politics, and that's where culture comes in.
Yeah, and it's a slippery slope, because once you compromise your views on one issue, right, then might as well compromise your views on everything.
Oh, that didn't hurt so bad, you know what I mean? And then next thing you know, you open all these doors and you're a completely different person.
So, to wrap up, politics aside, right? We're living in a crazy world. There's all these agendas at play. There's all this black magic that we can't see happening behind the scenes. What can the individual do in the realm of personal excellence? What do you think are maybe 3 things that are really important for individuals to do to change the world around them?
So again, personal excellence is the ultimate rebellion. That is an Andy Frisella quote, and that is something that I try to live by, that I know that he lives by, and the people that are in and around us who are doing their best to do these things are living by, and is knowing that the best thing that you can do to create a better world is to be the best version of yourself. And I think that starts just with 3 foundations. It starts with your physical health. Everything starts and ends there. If you're not in control of your physical health, everything else is not going to work. So being healthy, being disciplined with your time, and all of these things. And again, you don't have to go and it's not about having the best looking body or this or that. It's about being connected to who you are physically, and making sure that every day when you wake up that you can be your best, because you're putting yourself in the position to do so by being healthy, by getting good sleep. It sounds really simple, but get good sleep, eat well, exercise daily, get out in the sun. I guarantee if you're not doing those, drink a gallon of water a day, take a multivitamin. If you're not doing anything, if you start with those 5 things, you're gonna feel incredibly better. And you don't have to know all of it, right? Once you get those out of the way and you feel better, you'll know what's next. You don't have to have the entire plan figured out, and it's individual for everybody.
From what's this guy's name? The funny guy, Andrew Tate. Someone DM'd him, right? He has a lot of young kids that look up to him. Says,
yeah.
I want to commit suicide, right? So he replies to me, says, listen, I don't want to talk you out of it. I don't know what your life's been like, but do me this favor. When you go to the gym every single day until you get a 6-pack, and then once you get a 6-pack, if you still want to kill yourself, I support your decision.
Hey, he's not wrong. He's not wrong, because there's 100% likelihood that if you do that, along the way, all of these other things are going to change. And that's the importance of the physical health, and that would be number 1. And then number 2, I would say, your mental health. It's important to always be learning, right? You should be reading a book a month at minimum. And if you're not doing that, you should be ingesting good information, right? We have this habit of just letting everything in, right? Scrolling on Instagram, listening to the radio, all of these things. There's so much junk that comes in when that can be, used in a more conscious way. And that doesn't mean you can't enjoy some television or whatever like that. You have to be like a monk and only listen to podcasts when you drive. You don't have to be extreme with stuff, but be conscious of how much of the pure entertainment, relaxation stuff you're doing, and how much constructive work you're doing inside your own mind. And again, there's a million things you could do. Start journaling. I don't know. You don't have to overthink it. Start journaling. You might love it, and you might get something from it. You might be like, this is stupid. Then pick up a book, and that might be it. Go meditate, whatever it is. Go take all of these things. You'll figure it out, but you just got to try them. See what works for you, what doesn't. But get right mentally, and that means not only how you feel about yourself, but also the way that you interact with others. Look at your relationships. How can you be better in your relationships? And that obviously that first relationship is with yourself. There's got to be some self-love. There's got to be those things, and you can develop those, but you've got to have good relationships in your life. One of the things I do as a daily or a frequent sort of practice is I'll just go through my phone. I'll go through my phone book, and somebody I haven't talked to in a while, I'll just, hey, how you doing? Doesn't take a lot. And it's hard to quantify how much that's made my life better. Checking in on people that I care about, right? Whether it's somebody you see a lot, Andy and I do that quite frequently because I know that he has a lot on his plate. Sometimes I'm just, hey, bro, how are you? And that helps build a strong person mentally. So intellectually, but also kind of in your head with yourself and with others. And then the last is your financial health. You have to be in control of your finances. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean entrepreneurship, but it means being conscious of what your money is doing, what you're doing with your money, how you spend it, where you spend it, how you budget it, how you view your relationship with money. I've lived years of my life, just money coming in, money going out, money coming in, money going out. And I remember when I made my first 6 figures, at the end of the year, I couldn't pay my taxes. I didn't have $1 left to my name. And I was like, man, I did really good that year. And yeah, I had fun, but I could have had fun and also not been stressed about my tax bill, and had some savings, so you have to get your relationship with money and finances in a better place. And that's going to come from that intellectual development, but it's just about being conscious and developing discipline. They all kind of interlap on each other. And if you can get those things right, or even just get started in the right direction with all of those step by step, a week later, you're going to be a different person. A month later, you're going to be a different person. 6 months, a year later, you're going to be so much more powerful than you were unconsciously just roaming about your life, putting whatever food comes across your vision in your mouth, and whatever, fast food place you see, and just going to bed whenever randomly and spending your money. You're going to be a way better person in a short amount of time. And that better person is able to do so much more for themselves and for others.
I love it. Thank you so much again for being on the show, my friend.
Absolutely.
If people want to connect with you on social media, website, where's the best places to find you?
You can find me on social media, Ian Smith Fitness on Instagram and on Twitter. That's kind of where I'm at the most. You can find all my links and stuff there. I'm involved in a couple different projects. I have a book out that's called Find Your Hill. You can find the link right on my Instagram. I run 2 pretty awesome companies with some great people. Summit Rejuvenation. We do telehealth, TRT, and peptides, working on sort of changing the medical industry and changing people's understanding of hormonal health and how they can take control of their life, and then also recovery CBD. Working with people that are in pain, working with people with athletes, and both just awesome ventures. So if you ever have any questions about any of those things, if you're interested in them, I answer as many DMs as I can, and I'd love to chat.
Awesome. We'll leave all those links in the show notes.
Cool.
Thank you guys again. We'll see you next time.